but the sound wouldn't have worked this entire time. The good news is that I can just press the button and now the sound works. Cool. Um, so we had like different mics before like, as in I've been gone for 2 weeks, and now that I'm back, I guess they've switched out the mic situation. And is this a tiara kind of like? Am I wearing this correct? Like behind? Okay, because that makes more sense over the. I was like, I hate this so much. Like that. Wow. It's like I'm on. Yeah, that actually feels much better. It's like I'm on like a TED Talk kind of situation. Um, cool. So, can I just ask anybody to join in the Calgary channel? Um, whoops. So, we'll just say, hey, let me know when the sound works for you. Cool. So, if at some point, like sometimes I get excited and I forget to take a look at what's going on in Calgary, just rope me back into it, right? Um, all right, so we got Danila and Tom Tom in there, and we'll just wait. We'll just wait another minute or two. All right, so Connor gave a thumbs up, which is good. Which means we're gonna get good and started here. Um, today is week one, day one, which is really exciting because you're gonna do honestly some pretty hype stuff. We're gonna start off with a slideshow, and then I'm gonna give you kind of like the lowdown of what's going on with boot camp. Whoa! Don't click share. Click present. There you go. Um, all right. So just want to make sure everybody can see the screen. That's all good. All right. I'm gonna open up my little script here, because I kind of do things very much by the book. You're gonna see like a ton of me over the course of this week, and really the next big chunk of your lives. Um, so yeah. First of all, introductions. Y'all are students. That's cool. We did introductions this morning, which was very nice to meet everybody in Vancouver. I haven't gotten familiar with everybody in Calgary just yet, but I'll be on the Slack. I am Nima. I am one of the web dev instructors for the bootcamp. The other instructors you'll meet over the course of the week. So there's KV, there's a man named Don, there's somebody named Sam, and sometimes there's like other instructors that also pop in and out. Um, I'll like just a little bit about myself. I I do web dev, which is cool because I got to teach web dev. I did a computer science degree, and I did my minor in education. So if you want to trade education tips, you know who to talk to. As in, like, I find the theory of it really interesting. I'm really into embroidery. So again, if anybody's got any patterns that you want to share with me, please let me know. I also bullet journal. Are there any bullet journalers out in the crowd? Hey, there we go. Yeah, a little bit of that bujo. So bullet journaling as well in Calgary. I hope it's a big trend because it is really a ton of fun. Um, Now, what we're going to do today is a breakout. I'm going to take you through a couple different things, and really, this breakout's going to be a bit different than the other ones that you're going to experience over the course of the boot camp. So just a heads up, this one's going to be a little long. Most breakouts going to be around 40, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, right? They'll happen on Mondays and Tuesdays at 3. This one might be like an hour and 15, an hour and a half if we're having a really good time. Um, yeah, definitely not longer than that though. And I'm gonna keep my word and just time myself. So it is 3:09 right now. I should aim to finish by like 4:15. Cool. I'm just gonna make sure that I have Slack open so that I can also keep an eye on Calgary. Okay. And whoop. Okay. So today's breakout is called Life as a Dev, right? Life as a Dev. We're gonna explore what it's like to be a developer, and I'm gonna give you like a bit of a glimpse into what your thought process could be, aka should be, over the course of the next 10 weeks, which is quite a while. And really, it might even extend past those 10 weeks. This might be your thought process for the rest of your life, right? Just this one breakout. Just this one dude giving you everything you need. So we're gonna figure that stuff out. First, though, we're gonna take a look at the curriculum. So our curriculum is 10 weeks long, right? 10 weeks. You're in week 1. And there are a heck of a ton of things that we go through in this curriculum. Like, it's a big old curriculum. We're going to cover, in this week alone, software development through whatever Node is. And we're going to do testing, and there's pairing and approach and debugging, right? All that stuff. Just 1 week, right? We're going to do a mock challenge or test at the end of the week. And what that's going to look like is just a series of programming questions, right, that will give you some time to work on to get you ready for the actual test, which is the week afterwards, right? I'll talk a little bit more about these tests later. I just wanted to kind of like bullet point that up there for you right now. But week 1 is kind of high-level concepts, approach to being a developer, right? How do you approach learning a new language? And some more like quality of life things. So you've already been introduced to your programming pairs for today. You'll have new pairs tomorrow, right? And you'll have new pairs the day after. Pair programming is very, very, very useful, right? Make use of the fact that you have people around you that are learning the same thing, right? Work together to solve those problems. Don't depend on each other, but support each other, right? Pair programming is a real thing that happens in the world, right? In the world of being a developer. So take this as an opportunity also to just learn what it's like to work with somebody else on a programming project, because that might be the first time that you've had the ability to do that. Past week 1, we're no longer actually pairing you up with people, right? So you're receiving programming pairs this week, but afterwards it's up to you. I do recommend becoming friends with the people that you're sitting around so that you can, partner up over the course of the program. Week 2, we get into building our first project. So on Monday of next week, you'll have like a 1-day project, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then you dive into your first like multi-day big project, just building a web app. We're building a website that has some cool functionality. It does things. There's users. That's going to be a good time. And we'll explore the basic building blocks of how websites are built through different protocols like HTTP, different things called frameworks, like this thing called Express that we'll take a look at, and then database stuff. We hop in. Oh, there's also the test, which I will talk about. Week 3, week 4, more stuff. Basically, week 3 is front-end JavaScript. You get to work a little bit with styling and making things pretty and making websites that have some cool interactivity on the front part of them. And then in week 4, you get introduced to working on your first like big-scale team project, right? You'll be grouped up into small groups. You'll be given a choice of several projects to work on, right? And you spend like a series of days just working on those projects. And in fact, you saw earlier this morning people doing their presentations on their midterm projects. Week 5 is a remote week, right? Week 5, you get no support. You're on your own. But really, like by week 5, you'll mostly be self-sufficient. In week 5, it's your opportunity to learn to work outside of the confines of the boot camp, right? Getting comfortable with developing your own schedule, right, and your own rigor of like work ethic for this, because um, it's a whole different beast programming and coding on your own outside of like a scheduled environment. So week 5 is your opportunity to do that, as well as explore computer science, right? So we have a whole week of computer science curriculum in there. Um, Again, this week has like no mentor support officially. If you ever do need help, right, you're always like more than welcome to ask on Slack, right? It's just mentors will be prioritizing the new cohort at the time. Cool. You'll hear like a lot more about this week as you kind of go along with the program, but I want to give you that kind of glimpse. Then there's the final kind of stretch, which is weeks 6 to 10. In week 6, you get introduced to React. React is it's a technology that's very, very popular right now for building user interfaces on the web. So you get to build a project there. In week 7, we hop for a week into a different programming language called Ruby, right? And that week is not so much about learning Ruby as much as it is about learning to just kind of deal with a whole new programming language, a whole new set of problems being thrown at you in the shortest, most efficient kind of way possible, right? So again, as you get closer to week 7, we'll talk about this more and more, but don't get too spooked by the word Ruby, and like you don't need to go learn this language. That's something we're going to throw at you. It'll hurt a little bit. Like it's gonna be a good time. And then we end off week 8, 9, and 10 are mostly working on your final projects. Right? So you've got final projects at the end of the course. You'll be forming your own groups. You'll be coming up with your own project ideas. You'll be going through the entire development process, right? Which will start off with like brainstorming, figuring out what the idea even is, getting that down into writing, making wireframes and designs, and then finally building the project, mostly on your own, right? But with support from mentors if you need help. So that would be weeks 8 and 9. Week 10 is a remote week where you continue working on your final projects. So you won't have like mentors on call for you, right? It'll be very similar to your remote week in week 5. But again, you can always reach out to people for help. And then there's demo day. So week 10 is working on your final project, but like a big chunk of it is working on your presentation for the final project, right? Like what's that gonna look like, right? Are you gonna have slides, right? Are you gonna wear costumes, that kind of thing? Are you gonna do a skit? So all sorts of fun stuff. Peppered through the program are all sorts of other things which you're going to take a look at now, including, I mentioned projects, but there's little tech interviews. There's a bunch of like career services stuff. So this is going to be like a full kind of 10 weeks of stuff. So if you have any like concerts or things that you want to do in the next little kind of section of your life, that's kind of where that stuff kind of goes on hold. So yeah, we essentially own your time now. It's gonna be fun. So before I dive into the next couple slides, I want to give huge props to all of you for taking on this. It's really, really, really exciting. I just came back from a short trip that I took in Texas for Lighthouse Labs, where we were running like a miniature version of the program. And I'd never sat through the entire program day by day like that, because I'll generally instruct different groups of people. I just want to say, like, I am bewildered and amazed by like the amount of progress that people go through. So I just wanted to sit on my soapbox here and just go like, wow, good job on like taking this step. Cool. So over the course of the program, you are going to develop 3 fully like evaluated projects, right? There's other projects, but there's only 3 that we're going to actually sit down and mark, right? The first one is next week. It's called Tiny App, and Tiny App is it's that first second week project where you'll be exploring building like a fully functioning website for the first time, where the functionality of the website is to serve as a URL shortener. Kind of like Bitly, if you've used Bitly before, they'll take a long URL and make a short one. Week 3, you hop into making a Twitter clone called Tweeter. So that one uses a thing called jQuery. And then week 6 is a chat application called Chatty. So there's these 3, fairly sizable multi-day projects that get evaluated. Now, you'll be working on these projects over the course of multiple days. Every day there will be like a series of activities that will get you closer and closer to the finished product, right? I want to give you a heads up. Sometimes the structure of the curriculum, right, will send you down a dark path on purpose, right? So you might have to rewrite portions of your project, right? And that's on purpose. I just want to throw that out there, right? Like, the assignments are going to work you towards finishing the project, but sometimes they'll make you backtrack a little bit. And it's all in the spirit of getting you acquainted with what it's like to be a developer, right? And to improve things over time. So there's these 3 evaluated projects, but there's 2 other projects. They're not evaluated, but they're equally like important to do. So this coming Monday in a week, you'll be working on a basically a node project, similar to the scripts that you're writing today for your assignments, except this assignment on Monday is going to connect to GitHub and download profile pictures of people, right? It's fairly interesting. So we're going to be working on that. And then there's the Ruby project, which is called Jungle. That one's also not officially evaluated. You still have to do it though. Like it's still done. But these are the ones that you're going to receive feedback on very soon after you submit them. Cool. There are tech interviews. So every little, once in a while, specifically weeks 2, 3, 8, and 9, right? You will be told that you get to have a 1 hour or maybe more interview with one of the instructors or one of the mentors, right? So we have a ton of mentors you're gonna get to know over the next little while, and a bunch of the instructors. So all of us will periodically have these one-on-one sessions with you, which are done to simulate what it's like to be in a tech interview setting. What is it like when you're actually applying for a job and somebody runs you through these tech questions? So those are week 2, 3, 8, and 9. I want to stress that you don't have to stress about these things. They're not exams, right? We're not going to scream at you. When I do them, they're kind of 50-50 between a tutoring session and a tech interview simulation, right? Just to give you the opportunity to improve your presentation skills, your explanation skills, and to kind of catch whatever concepts you might still be a little hazy on. What I do really want to say about this is that you don't have to study ahead for the interviews, right? So if you have an interview on week 2, meaning next week, that interview will be about things that you did this week, right? The interviews are always about things that you did the week before, right? So as long as you keep up to date with the assignments and the readings that you're supposed to do, you'll do fine on the interviews. Cool. There are quizzes in the first 4 weeks. There's multiple choice quizzes that are kind of sprinkled in between your readings and assignments. You have multiple opportunities to kind of do these quizzes, so keep doing them until you get 100% on them. Honestly, I might even recommend once you've gotten 100% to still come back to them once in a while, just to refresh if you find the time, right? So there's quizzes. And there is an assessment test. So I'd kind of hand-waved this earlier. At the end of this week, right, so this Friday afternoon, we're going to sit down and actually I'm the one running it, so I get to watch you for 2 hours as I'm just gonna sit there and be like stroking my non-existent beard or whatever, just kind of watching you code as you work through a series of programming challenge questions that are very similar to the katas that you had to do over the course of the prep work. Um, on Friday, so this Friday is the mock test, right? This is your opportunity to kind of take a look at what the real test is like. So there's different questions, but the structure is very much the same, right? And you'll have until Sunday night, like Sunday at midnight, to get 100% on the test. You don't have to finish it in the 2 hours that we have scheduled here. So that's this Friday. The next Friday is the actual test. Right? That's the one that like quote unquote counts. Right? Again, don't stress about it because you've got Friday all the way up until like Sunday night to finish it. Right? Which is plenty of time. Right? So still this Friday you'll have the opportunity to kind of take a look at what that looks like. Okay. So to kind of sum it up, your evaluation is built up of all these things. We've got completion, right? So do your assignments, do your readings, right? Do your quizzes. We've got code reviews. So we will, as mentors, come to check out your code once in a while. Plus, when you submit your assignments, we will do project evaluations and take a look at what's going on in there. The tech interviews. So during the tech interviews, there's going to be multiple questions, and we'll be assessing you on different kind of vectors, right? How good are you at explaining certain topics? How good are you at understanding these things? Like, there is quizzes, there's a test, and then ultimately there's also the assistance requests, right? So make heavy use of asking for assistance. You know, the mentors and the instructors like will come around and help you with that, right? And it helps us kind of build a history of how you're doing as well, right? We're all like data driven and all that, right? So like we want to see you make use of that, right? Make use of the resources that you have around. So assistances. In general, like a good rule of thumb is if you've been struggling for something for like 15 minutes, right? And you haven't made like meaningful progress, definitely flag for assistance, right? So somebody can come and just kind of push you in the right direction, right? Cool. And then it goes, thank you, and it seems as if the breakout's over, but it's just begun. So are there any questions about the curriculum before we dive into some nitty-gritty stuff? Are we like super hyped? Like totally, yeah, woo. This whole thing is giving me like a Britney Spears vibe, right? And I'm like, are you ready? No, okay. So we're about to hop into the meat of this breakout. So today's breakout is called Life as a Dev. And what we're going to be focusing on is your workflow as a developer, your workflow as a student in this boot camp. Those are the two kind of main things that we're going to be focusing on. So me you know what, let me talk a little bit before I dive into this. The lectures are good for some things and they're bad for some other things, right? And just like bear with me, it's gonna make sense. I'm gonna open up Sublime and I'm just gonna start writing some stuff, and we're gonna talk about Sublime a little bit. Let me just hide Bandcamp. Okay, so we're gonna go Sublime text. Okay, so just want to make sure that the stuff I'm writing is visible to everybody. Can you see me? Is that good for everyone? Awesome. Same goes for you, Calgary. If like my color scheme is ever off or anything, just let me know, and we'll adjust it because I want everybody to be able to see things. So we are going to be working with, we're going to go notes.md. We're going to be working with a couple tools over the course of this boot camp. Breakout life as a dev. You'll be working with a couple tools, and I'll make a list of some of those. These are your tools of the trade. Uh, there's your terminal, right? There is a thing called Vagrant. And then for right now, there's a thing called Sublime Text. Whoa, text. Right. We'll also say browser, but I'm not going to talk about the browser very much. We're going to put that one way down there. So we'll say tools of the trade. And the reason I list out these tools is because I want you to become like a power user with these tools, right? Honestly, these four things, like when you get to the browser next week, I want you to become really, really comfortable just with playing around with these things, with bending them and breaking them and snapping them and seeing like, what is it that I can do with my terminal? What is it that I can do with Sublime Text, right? What is Vagrant? Right? Those are all things that I want you to be comfortable with by, like, honestly, by the end of like the week, right? You don't need to become an expert, right? But you do want to get to the point where these tools are not the things holding you back. They're the things empowering you, right? There's going to be plenty of other things that are around to kind of like be difficult. So we want to get these ones out of the way. So just to outline like a little bit of a theme for the lecture on top of life as a dev is becoming a power user. Right? Becoming a power user with these tools. I'm gonna put browser in parentheses. There you go. Okay, so I mentioned the word lecture because that's what's going on right now. I'm just kind of sitting up here on my stool being like, oh, these are things that are good, these are things that are bad, this is what you should do, shouldn't do. Lecturing. It's great for some things, but it's horrible for other stuff, right? Lectures are good for showing you methodology, like showing you approach, right? Lectures are really good for you to see how a senior developer approaches problems, right? How a senior developer approaches maybe frustration, right? Like those things, right? Lectures are really good for high-level concepts, right? They're really great for kind of outlining maybe a starting point for your understanding, right? Say we dive into some big kind of like concept, right? That you're going to need time to kind of get your hands dirty with and really understand, right? Lectures are very good at demoing that for the first time, right? Lectures are not good for pretty much anything else, right? Like lectures are not great for syntax, right? They're not great for learning exactly how to do something, right? Lectures are not very good for like all around knowledge. You're gonna get the knowledge from working through the assignments and from running into these issues and solving them together, right? Like we can't just yell JavaScript stuff at you, right? Just forever and hope that that stuff kind of sinks in. So the way that you should approach the lectures from like a mental point of view, coming into this in the morning is, oh, I forgot one more here. Entertainment, right? Kind of look forward to the lectures as if they were some kind of really boring stand-up comedy routine or like a one-person act. Like, oh, you going to see Hamilton today? Nah, man. I'm going to that great JavaScript lecture in the morning. Like that's all the theater I need. Like that's what I want you to approach these lectures with. You will do the learning. This stuff's gonna like sink in. I just don't want you to go away from a lecture expecting yourself to fully understand things, right? Now, the lectures are recorded, right? They are recorded so you can watch them again anytime, right? So same with this one. I'm recording it right now. Hello to whoever ends up watching it, and hello to Calgary. Like, they're recorded. You can watch them again. Notes are always sent out, but the bulk of your learning is going to happen through the assignments. Lectures are good for as I said, showing approach, what that kind of also involves is problem solving and like structure of projects, right? So you're going to see over the course of the 10 weeks that different kinds of projects have different kinds of structure, right? Even the same kind of project might have a couple different ways that you could set it up, right? A lecture is a great opportunity to ask an instructor, hey, like, why are you doing this particular way, right? That's what lectures can be really, really good for. That being said, you have to attend lectures. Like, you have to be there. They're a big part of the curriculum. So, as you're in lecture, like, what do you do? Note taking, right? We're going to be taking notes during the lectures, or at least I would highly recommend it. But taking notes in a like web dev lecture is a little bit different than taking notes in like a university lecture for like certain classes. So I don't want you to write down every single thing I say. I don't want you to code along at all, right? Unless an instructor has asked you specifically to play around like together, right? In general, do not code along, right? Do not code along, because all of the code that I write or all the code that the instructors write is going to be sent to you, right? You're going to receive that within like 20 minutes, maybe 15, maybe 10 after the lecture, right? So you can play around with that stuff. You can run into issues if you try to code along and keep up with the lecture in that way, because what's going to happen is often the lecturer will write like bad code on purpose to then go back and fix. So if you get lost, then you just end up with a whole bunch of bad code, right? That's not a ton of fun. Just want to make sure that Calgary is still on here. And has Calgary asked any questions? Just yes. Okay. By the way, Calgary, if you ever ask any questions and I don't like reply immediately, can Vancouver please just let me know and I'll address that stuff. Okay, so I don't want you to code along, but what I do want you to do is write down notes about, again, high-level concepts, right? High-level concepts, or maybe you're like, oh, I saw Nima do that cool thing, right? Note to self, research cool thing, right? That kind of stuff, right? Don't focus too much on syntax. Okay, so for note taking particularly though, like whether it's for lectures or whether you're keeping your own notes over the course of the boot camp, there are a couple different kind of things that you can do. I mean, you could have a Word document if you really wanted to and just keep writing stuff in it. Evernote is really cool. If anybody uses Evernote, what we recommend here is to write your notes in Markdown, right? So Markdown is just this MD, just a file extension. So this is just a text file saved as, notes.md. I'll let you do things like making things bold or whatever. So this is bold, and when you look at it on GitHub, it'll be bold. It's just a whole little markup language. The reason that we recommend doing this stuff is kind of twofold. One, your documentation for your projects are going to be written in this thing called Markdown. I'll send you like a cheat sheet on this stuff. But second, it'll give you the ability to kind of use this stuff within the editor that you're using to code anyways, right? So again, you'll notice I'm using Sublime right now, right? I'm using Sublime Text. You're using that to write code, right? At the moment, I'm using it to write notes, and it's going to be nice when I have my code and my notes in the same program, and I can just switch back and forth between them, right? What you'll also maybe want to do is to structure your assignments and your notes and just all of your coursework in a nice, like, organized way. So what I've seen works fairly well for people is to make many folders, right? So I'm going to go like project, no, actually we'll rename this to daily folder structure. So your daily folder structure, you might have many folders, right? And you might do something like week 1, day 1, which I've already seen some people do. And then tomorrow you'll make a week 1, day 2, and a week, 1, day 3. And it's not that bad. Like, you can just make a bunch of these folders. If you get really upset about ending up with 100 folders at the end of it, make 4, right? Make a week 1 folder and a week 2, and not 4, 10. Make as many folders as you need per weeks, and then within each one of these, you can do day 1, day 2, day 3, and keep all your notes in there, right? I just want to point this out because you'll want to kind of adopt something early on, so you can just get it out of the way, right? And as you save your notes, right, you give them descriptive names, right? Keep in little tag stuff, right, so that you can search for the particular files, right? So that's about as much as I want to say for it right now. I would personally recommend doing this for right now, and just keep making a new folder every single day. Again, though, if you have any questions, or if you want to tweak up the way that you're organizing your projects and your structure, flag a mentor down, right? Or share tips with each other. Everybody's gonna have a different way of doing things. I'm an organization freak, so I like structuring this stuff. Okay. Are there any questions before we dive into using the terminal? Awesome. Okay, so the first kind of huge, awesome tool that we're using is the terminal. You're about to look like a hacker to everybody in your life, because this stuff looks bananas. People see this in a coffee shop and they're like, "Whoa, I shouldn't get on the Wi-Fi here. This person's gonna steal my credit card," right? So we've got this thing called the terminal. Now, by default, when you open up your terminal, you're going to see something that looks a little bit like this. Let me go CD. And, okay. You're just going to see your name and all that, maybe the time or something, depending on how your terminal is set up by default. Right? Quick question. Am I in Vagrant right now? No. You will know you're in Vagrant when... Just a second. Oh, it's gonna be worth it. Oh no. Oh shoot. Okay, so I made a mistake right here. I tried to Vagrant SSH, right, while I wasn't in my Lighthouse folder, right? So maybe you'll run into this, right? You'll have to CD into. You probably have a folder called Lighthouse, right? CD into that folder and then Vagrant SSH, right? And it'll take a second, and then we get the little friendly lighthouse up, right? There are times when running Vagrant SSH won't work. And your first course of action should be, well, did I run Vagrant up at any point in my life, right? Or did I run Vagrant up since the last time I turned my computer off, right? So Vagrant up is going to boot up Vagrant, and then you can run Vagrant SSH to get inside. Now, I point this out because there's going to be many times when somebody will flag for assistance, right? And be like, "Oh, my code's not running. Nothing works. Why is this command not I don't get it." And we'll take a look at your terminal and see that it doesn't say Vagrant on it. You're not in Vagrant. Right? Step 1, be in Vagrant. Step 2 of becoming a terminal freak is write anything into here and press enter. Right? Just Beethoven it. And then enter. I get a thing popping out saying command not found. Okay? This is a very, very helpful error. It tells me that there's no command in Vagrant that has the name KGFHDSKA. Okay? But there might be other commands with different names, such as ULS, whatever ULS is. Okay. So there is a command called ls, which you've probably already become familiar with, and it stands for list subdirectories, right? There's another command called cd, which stands for change directories. And whoa. Okay. So I want you to get comfortable with several of these commands, and I'm going to make a list of them. The commands that I want you to play around with are cd, mkdir, mkdir, and then there's uls and touch. These ones are fairly important, right? cd is going to change your directory. Mkdir is going to make a directory. This is going to list subdirectories, right? It's going to list all your files. And then there's touch. Does anybody know what touch does? It creates, right? So touch creates a file. Just get comfortable with this stuff, right? Go look up other commands. There's a million of them, right? A million. Okay. Now, with all of these things, sometimes there is the opportunity to write something after that word. So here I'm just gonna go. I went cd ... which takes me back a folder. But say I want to change my directory into one of these directories, such as Vagrant. I can make use of my terminal's autocomplete functionality, right? I can go V and then go tab, and if I spam tab a couple times, like I just hardcore spam it, it'll print out anything that matches V. I see that there's VA, like Vagrant and var. If I go VA and I spam tab a couple times, now it's only showing me Vagrant and var, right? And if I go VAG, right, and press tab, it will autocomplete all the way to the end of that name, right? Autocompletion is awesome because why would you want to spend your time writing out a bunch of stuff and getting frustrated over the path that you're writing when really you can just let autocompletion do that work for you. Now, I'm gonna make a new directory called hello. I'm gonna cd into hello, and I'm gonna make a new directory called world. I'm gonna cd into world, and then I'm gonna cd back to Vagrant. Okay. Now, say that I'm very lazy or just want to be efficient, and I don't want to write out all those commands again, right? Say I want to go into the hello folder. I can press up on my arrow keys, and it will cycle through all the commands that I ran recently. Right? Pointing this out because some people just don't find out about this in like the first week, and then when they do find out, they're like, "What? Why didn't anybody tell me?" So now you know. Right? So if I wanted to cd into hello, like I can write out cd hello, or I can press up a couple times until I found the one that I'd run before. Okay. So the terminal has cd, make dir, list, touch, autocompletion, and then autocompletion. And I mean, really, for plain just terminal stuff, this is all I want to say right now. But what I do recommend is making a note for yourself, right? If you find the terminal interesting, if you want to become a terminal power user, make a note for yourself to flag down a mentor sometime, right? Maybe this week, maybe next week, and just ask them to show you the ropes on how you can really use your terminal to like its full kind of efficiency, right? You see, like I use a terminal called Hyper that has all these pretty colors in it. I have a thing that prints out a fish, right? I don't know. You can jazz your terminal up, make it your own. Again, I would just recommend setting a little reminder for yourself and reaching out to a mentor at some point, like this week or next week. Okay, so that being said, I think we're ready to hop into our next big tool, which is the one I've been using this whole time. It's called Sublime. Right? Sublime is a text editor, but there's cool stuff about it because it's not Word, right? It's not Pages, it's not Google Docs. It's specifically built for developers, by developers. It's great. It's got all sorts of little plugins and stuff that you can put in to customize it. But just out of the box, it's got pretty much everything you need to be super efficient. What we're going to start off with is actually opening up folders in Sublime, right? So Sublime lets you open up files, but it'll also let you open up entire folders so you can see the whole structure of your project, right? Now, we can open stuff by going Command O. Heads up, I'm going to be doing Mac shortcuts, but the window, like PC shortcuts are going to be very similar. They'll generally just be Control as opposed to Command. The idea here, though, is I don't know why I'm pointing here. I've been teaching in an office that has a like not a window, but like a projector right here. So if I do that, that's like the idea is that you get the thing open, right? So if I'm in Sublime, I go Command O, and instead of actually selecting one of these files, right, I make sure nothing is selected, right? Nothing is selected. And then I click Open, and what I get is a window that on the side shows me all of the files and folders that were at that place that I opened, right? I want you to do this. Don't open up individual files, but open up folders. What this is going to let me do is, notice on the edge here I have a thing called Notes, and I have a thing called README. I can open up all of these things in tabs, right? So I can have multiple things open at a time. You also see that that folder that I just made a minute ago, Hello and World, are also still there. Right? So yes, this is Sublime. These are all my tabs. If I want to make a new tab for some reason and start off with like a new file, I can go Command N, and every time I press Command N, it spawns a new tab. Right? And I'm just going to write some things here. I'm going to put a smiley face here and a sad face here and a little sparkle on that one, just so I have some content on each one of these tabs, because we can click the tabs to go to different tabs, or if you're feeling extra, fancy, you can Command Shift, and then there's the square brackets. So Command Shift and then the square bracket keys on your keyboard, you're gonna like cycle through the tabs. I'll write this down. It'll go. So hotkeys. So Command N is new tab, so new file, and then Command plus Shift plus this or this other one. They're gonna cycle back and forth, right? Okay, you had a question over there? Oh, so if you're on a Mac, you can go Control, Command, and Space, right, to bring up the emoji menu. I make very heavy use of this. So Control plus Command plus Space, Mac emoji menu. There you go. Okay. Here is the most useful of the shortcuts. The most useful. Whoops, not that one. Wow, what a cool sparkle. I wish I had many of them. I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to Command C. I'm going to go Command V and have many sparkles, right? Copy things and paste them, right? Just do it. Just copy and paste stuff, right? Don't necessarily copy and paste stuff from the internet, right? But if it's like a command, or if it's some code that you wrote, right, it's not too bad to once in a while not have to write out all this stuff, right? I mean, just look at all those sparkles, right? Sparkles. So Command and paste. Command C is copy, Command V is paste, and then there's the ever dangerous Command X, which cuts. Cut. Yeah, that's what it does. All right, so we've got Command C, Command X, Command V. I've written these down as the big ones. Okay. What does this mean up here? What does that little circle mean? It means I haven't saved, right? I have conditioned myself in an almost Pavlovian fashion that as soon as I see the circle, I start sweating. I'm just like, oh God, I need to save right now, right? As soon as I see the circle, I have to go Command S and save my stuff, right? Often, that might actually be the issue with your program. You'll be like, Nima, I wrote all this code. Look at these 10,000 lines of code. But when I try to run the program, none of those new lines are running. I'll be like, hey, is there a circle up in the tab? Yeah, there's a circle up in the tab. Hit Command S and you'll be all good, right? So that, just to say Command S, save your stuff, right? Save and save often. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and save a couple of these. So this one's called Sparkles, or Sparks apparently. Okay, I named the thing wrong. You can right-click on any of these files and go rename. So I'll call this one Sparkles dot md, and then this one here is gonna be sad dot md, and this one here is gonna be happy dot md. So I have all of these different files. Okay, now I'm gonna do the unthinkable and close them all. Oh no, what if I have to, like, if you're like in the zone, like you're just in the zone, you don't want to take your hands off of the keyboard to like go to the trackpad and like gingerly just kind of go and press on one of these, or say you have a million files and you just can't remember exactly where it is, right? There are easy ways of finding that file. So Command P, very, very useful shortcut. Command P is going to open up the quick find menu for finding files. And I know that if I want to find happy, I can just write happy, and it'll pop itself up here, and it'll actually load itself up automatically as well. I can press enter to select that one. If I want to go to Sparkles, I go Command P, Sparkles, right? And there are all my sparkles, right? So, I mean, I don't think this is a huge deal, but like right now, but as your projects blow up, right? So right now your projects are like one file, right? Next week your projects are gonna be like 4, 5, maybe 7 files, right? Week after that, it's gonna be like 30 files, right? You don't want to dig through every single folder and be like where is that thing, right? Use the little Command P and just type out the name of the file, right? And you'll find it. Okay, so we've got that, and yeah, I still have time. I'm gonna show you some other cool kind of shortcuts. Say I have a file that has a bunch of text in it. I am sad. Sad. Me. There you go. So I have this file with sadness. Okay. If I'm on this file and I want to find the word sad, what do I do? Command F, right? So you might be familiar with Command F from other programs. It works in here too. So I can go sad, and it will highlight all the sads for me, right? Find sad, and if I click on this, it'll cycle through all the sads. What if I don't even have that file open, and I'm in a different file, and I want to find the word sad? What do I do? Exactly, right? Normally, we might not know how to do a find across multiple tabs, or tabs that aren't even open. But in Sublime, I can do Command Shift F, and it'll say, hey, like you can search for the word sad, right? And I pressed enter, and it loaded up this page, and it's like, hey, we found sad in this file here, right? And when I find it, I can double click on where that is, and it'll open up the particular thing, right? So all that to say, you don't need to have a million tabs open, right? In fact, I'm a big pusher for having only like 2 or 3 tabs open at a time, right? Because I get overwhelmed. Like I get really overwhelmed when I see like that. Just like I don't even know what to do, right? So I'll keep like 2 or 3 open at a time, and I'll just open up whatever I need. Okay, I'm gonna write some of the other cool ones in the notes, but among them are commenting things out. So if I have a bunch of JavaScript code, let me just save this one as test.js. If I have a bunch of JavaScript code like console.log, hello, and the number 3, right? And I want to get rid of a line of code temporarily, I can comment it out by going command and slash. Very useful. If I want to bring it back, I can go command and slash again. That'll be in the notes. if I have multiple like windows open, so here I have many different Sublime windows open that all have different stuff on them, I can cycle through the windows with Command and then the tilde key, and it's like a better version of Alt Tab because it'll just cycle through all of my Sublime windows, right? So again, I'll put that in the notes. Don't save this, and then whoa, and tab and close that. I should not have opened so many of these. Whoop, don't save, and then don't save. Okay, so we've got that. Now there is a web page where you can take a look at all of the shortcuts. Again, I don't think shortcuts are the most important thing, right? But they'll allow you to take away like a little bit of a barrier in your productivity, right? Sure, it takes a little while to like get comfortable with them. You can print out a cheat sheet or something. But it's nice sometimes if you're like really in the zone to not have to go through and search for particular things, right? Yeah. So there's that. Oh, here's another cool one. There's one shortcut with Control, Command, and then the up and down keys are going to move anything that you've selected up and down, which is useful if you've written something in the wrong place. You can just move it all the way up. So that'll be in the notes as well. Okay. It's 4. And what we're going to do right now is dive into the kind of last section of today, which is version control plus a demo. Okay, so at this point, you've played around a little bit with Git, or you've seen the word Git before, and you've probably also seen the words version control or VCS somewhere. So I just want to motivate this idea before we really dive into the nitty-gritty of how this stuff works. If you've ever worked on a paper before, right, or like a thesis or whatever, you've probably had the experience of let me just make a new file. Oh, this is my project. I'm gonna call it cool project version1.js, and I write a bunch of code. And then I'm very happy with it. Wait, let me just save this. There we go. I'm very happy with it, and I save it. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? I want to change it a little bit, but I don't want to lose the stuff that I done before. I kind of want to have a milestone, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of save as every time I make a change. So I'm gonna make a new line here and save as version 2, and then save as version 3 every time I make more changes. And then you end up with cool project dash dash v7 dash final version dash I promise this is the last one dash oh right I made a typo, right? We want to avoid that. So what version control is it's a system that lets us create one file or one project that has a labeled history of all the changes that happen to that file or to that project, right? That's what version control from a high level is that we'll have just a single place where you do your work, you can continue making changes, and anytime you want to save a particular point in time, you'll say, hey, I am saving this point in time right now with a particular name. Right? So the idea behind version control is really just that, right? Saving particular milestones. But there's many different systems that we can use to do version control with. So there's one called SVN. We're working with one called Git. So the history behind Git is a little interesting. For anybody who's familiar with UK slang, the word Git might immediately just kind of send some alarm bells going off. What? That's weird. So Git is, nicely speaking, it's a word for, I don't know. Does anybody want to give a definition? Does anybody know what a, if somebody calls you a Git on the street, is that a good thing? Yeah, it's like a word for an idiot. I just didn't want to use the word idiot. I didn't want to be the first to say it. Right? A Git is like an idiot. Now, Git was made by a very interesting person named Linus Torvalds, right? A Finnish developer who's famous for several things, among which developing Linux, an operating system. Unless you ask some people, they call it GNU plus Linux. But he didn't do the GNU part. Let me just backtrack here. He made a thing called Linux, and he made a thing called Git. Now, Linus, he's very famous for being really rude and really mean, and very hot-tempered. If you go online and kind of like look at the forum posts, in the forums where he's on, he's always getting really heated at people over things that you're like, why are you even, like, why? But he's a genius, so good for him. The thing about Git was, at the time, this was 2006. Let me check. I've got a tab open with it here. The year was 2006. So the Linux project, which is an operating system that Linus Torvalds kind of heads, was using a thing called BitKeeper for their version controlling. Right? Now, Linus, well, the people who made BitKeeper got mad at the people who were doing the Linux stuff because there was a little bit of shady kind of reverse engineering of the BitKeeper software. So the BitKeeper people were like, yo, you can't keep doing that stuff. Like, you can't keep messing around with our system and like digging into the source code if you want to use it for the Linux operating system. So what Linus does is he's like, fine, I'll make my own version control system. And that was April 3rd, 2006. And then he, I guess, had a bunch of Red Bull and kind of like sat in a room for a little while. And 3 days later, he comes out of his cave and he's like, hey, I'm done. Like, I made Git. Like, what? Okay. And then 3 more days pass, and now Git is using Git, right? So like Git's a program. So you have to, somebody has to build Git, and there might be many versions of Git. So it took them like just 3 more days to make it so that Git was using Git in itself, like hosting, and it's weird stuff. And then just a couple days later, they released a new version of Linux using Git. All that to say, Git's fairly new, right? 12 years isn't a very long time. Oh, 13 years. 2019 now. Snap. Ooh, that just hit. Okay. So there's a couple goals with Git. The goals with Git are, we want it to be a fast method for controlling our versions. So I shouldn't have to click save and then like wait a couple minutes, right? It should happen immediately. It's distributed, meaning Git doesn't need to run on the cloud, right? And we all have to connect to it. We can have Git on our own machines. Git is secure. Maybe you want to work on systems that like only some people should have access to changing, right? Maybe you want to password protect some things. Or maybe security here, you could take it as, I don't want my project to suddenly lose a bunch of its history or to have some of it like go corrupt and all that. And Git is smart. And what smart's going to mean is that you can work on different parts of a project at different times and then merge those parts together, right? And Git's going to be really smart about how it does the merging without breaking your program. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into this right now, right? But I would like you to like come back to these 4 points later on this week, right? And think about how Git does achieve these 4 different things. So there is a philosophy that you'll kind of have to adopt as you're working with Git. So you're going to say philosophy of Git. So first thing is that we are dealing with things called repositories, aka repos, right? So a repository is the folder in which your project is in, right? So you're going to have a single folder for every project, right? Let me make that clearer. Every project should have a new folder, right? You should not have one project's folder inside of another project's folder. They should be separate at all times. Okay? One project, one directory, one repo, right? One. I say this now, and I promise you by the end of the week, each of you will have accidentally messed that up, right? That's fine. That's the learning experience. It's going to be a good time. So the philosophy of Git has these repositories and these things called commits, right? And that's what we're really going to dive into over the next like 15 minutes. Oh, that's my screen. So commits. Commits are going to be labeled, time-stamped, like entries in the history of your project, right? You are going to say, I commit this change. It's like when you're in a relationship and you're like, are you, I feel like you're not committed, and you're like, but I am. Git commit dash m, I am committed to this relationship. Like, this stupid programming joke is going to make more sense and not be any funnier, but like, you get to decide when to save your history of your project, right? You'll get to decide that. Now, there are 8 Git commands that you need to know, right? I'm going to list all of them out. I'm just going to list all of them out, not explain what they do. And then I'm going to use them over the course of building up a little demo project, right? So you get to see what they do like in real time in actual usage. So the 8 commands are init, status, add, commit, remote, pull, and log, right? These are a bunch of different Git commands, and each of them has to be written as git init, or git status, or git add, git commit. Oh, you want to see something cool about Sublime is if you click on a bunch of places and hold down option while is it option or control? Oh man, oh I messed up. Oh, command. If you hold command as you click in different places, you put down multiple little cursors, and then I'm like, whoa, right? So if you got a bunch of repetitive work to do, you can just click in a bunch of different places and go wham, 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 wham. Whoops, right? And just maximum power. Okay, so I've got git init, status, add, commit, remote, pull, and log. What are these things for? Push, yeah. I've written them out in like, yeah, yes, it's push. You're thanks for catching that. So git commit remote git push. Thank you. Numbers. So we're gonna start off with the very first one here, which is git init, and git init will initiate a Git repo. Right? What does this mean? Okay, I'm going to hop into Vagrant. Right? So here I am in my terminal, and from just my root place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a folder called cool project. No, oh, you know what? I'm going to call it Get Good. So here is a project called Get Good, where we're going to go through the process of getting good with Git. So I'm going to cd into Get Good. Now, the first thing that I will do in this folder, right, is run git init. And git init tells me, hey, I've initialized, well, I thought I could zoom in on that well, but like I've initialized empty Git repository in this particular folder, right? I'm going to see if I go ls, there's nothing in here. Nothing in here. But if I ls with my like x-ray goggles, if I go ls-a, like show me everything, I see .git, right? I see a file that's been made called .git, right? And this file is going to do all the magic stuff of tracking all the changes to my repo, right? So as soon as I've got a .git file in there generated, you know, we're in. Like, this is it. Git status. Git status I can only run inside of a Git repository. So you're going to see if I go cd ... and I go git status inside of just my home like Vagrant folder, it'll tell me, yo, you're not in a Git repository. But as soon as I go into cd git good and go git status, I'm all good, right? And there's a little bit of useful information here. It says I'm on branch master, whatever that means. I won't explain that right now, but you'll learn like tomorrow. Something about initial commit, and then it says, hey, there's nothing to commit at the moment. Because I haven't actually added anything to this project, right? I haven't added anything to here. So I'm going to go ahead and create some stuff inside of that git good new file, and I'm going to call this one script.js, right? So now my git good folder has script.js in it, right? And now I am obsessed. I'm just obsessive about going git status often, right? I ran git status like 20 seconds ago and it didn't say anything useful, and now it's like, oh, untracked files, and it shows me some red text, script.js. So what git status is going to show you is all the changes that you've made, right? All the changes that you've made that haven't been actually committed, haven't been saved in your history, right? So I made this file called script.js, and now I might want to actually keep track of that file in my history. So I'm going to write this down into my notes over here. Git status checks the status of the repo. Any new files? Any new changes? Right? It's going to check all that stuff. And now, when I want to add a change, right? When I want to add a change into like a new entry of my history, I'm going to run the git add command. And what git add is going to do is add a or multiple files, right? Changes to the new commit, right? I'll format all this stuff so it's like nicely legible when I send out the notes. So what I'm going to see here is when I go git status, again, it's all red. If I go git add and then I write script.js, and I'm just going to autocomplete with the tab, right? And just run it, nothing visually happens right now. I don't see anything until I go git status. And now it's green. And it gives me a summary of like what that change was. Like new file, script.js. Now, I'm happy with just this fact. Like, I want to save a point in history where Nima created a file, right? And what I'm going to do here after git add, which I've done, git add script.js, is go git commit, and then I have to add a message to my commit. Right? I'm going to add a message with every one of my commits that's going to succinctly, in small English or whatever language you choose, describe what has gone on with that change. And when I go enter, right? Oh no, ignore that. I didn't do the setup that you did because I freshly installed my stuff. Okay, I'm gonna go git commit, and now it has created an entry in time with a particular name, right? A randomly generated name. A list of changes, so I didn't actually add any lines of code, I just made a new file, right? And now if I go ahead and go git status, it'll tell me there's nothing to commit, right? I'm going to go ahead and make another couple changes. I'll go console.log sup, right? I've got a console log in there. I go get status, there's a change, I go get add, and now something that I can do instead of writing the name of the files that I want to add is I can go get add dot, and that will add every file. Right? So that's added script.js. Imagine I had a couple other files in here. Actually, you know what? Let's just make them. So this one's test, and this one is another test. In get status, I now have 2 more files to track. I can go get add dot to track all of them. Right? I'm going to do another commit. Add a console log plus 2 new files. And there we go, I've committed, right? I'm keeping track of the history of my files locally. Now, I've gone through init, status, add, commit, right? The next command that I want to take a look at here is the one called remote. Whoops. Yes, get remote. So just gonna put spaces between these so I don't get confused. So commit is gonna save that point in time, and get remote is going to allow me to communicate with a another computer. Let's just say that. It'll let me have another place where I can back up my stuff. Right? Just another place where I can back up my stuff. So it'll be like, maybe you have a friend who has a computer who lets you upload all your files to it. And I'm like, I want to work on my computer, and then just in case I spill beer on it, I want to have all my code backed up on that other computer. Right? So that's going to be called a remote. Right? A remote. Now, the most useful remote that you'll be using over the course of the bootcamp is called GitHub. Right? GitHub is just a very rich friend. Just a very, very rich friend who lets you upload your code somewhere for free. And you're going to see that when you go to click the little plus icon, plus, one of the options in here is new repository. Right? New repository, and you can give your repositories any name. I'm going to call it get good. Right? Get good. And I can give it a description. Getting good with Git. And there's this, like, all sorts of other options, but for right now, I'm just going to keep the defaults and click create a repository, and this is what I see. Right? This is an empty repository having been created on GitHub. Right? And I want to take my code, my existing Git repo that I've made on my machine, and upload it to GitHub, so that if I spill beer or something on my computer, like, all my stuff is saved somewhere else. That's all that GitHub is somewhere where you can upload your code to save. It'll give you a couple options. You know, maybe you want to create a new repository on your local, right? But we already did that. We already ran Git init. So we're going to do the second option here, which is push an existing repository. And you'll see that I have options. I have Git, remote, add origin. So this is going to say talk with a remote machine, right? We're going to be adding a new remote machine to our list of remotes, and we're going to be calling that remote machine origin, right? That's what we're going to be calling it as a name. And then here is the link to where you can find that remote repository, right? So you can be doing this anytime you create a new repository, right? Is having to add an origin for yourself. Now, you'll also notice that there are 2 options up here, right? You might have already explored them a little bit. One of them says HTTPS and the other one says SSH. I want you to always go and click on SSH on here, right? You did all your SSH key stuff which is going to permit you to not have to write your username and password every time, right? I'll show you what happens if you accidentally click HTTPS instead. So as I click on SSH or HTTPS, you'll also notice that the text down here, this stuff where I'm moving my mouse around, changes. So I'm going to do HTTPS. I'm going to add an origin. Doesn't get add star. Well, like, I've actually never done star before. We can play around with that. But get add dot does add all the files. There's many options, and I invite you to explore. So I'm going to take this command here. I'm going to go into my terminal. I'm going to paste it. Nothing happened. Are we in the clear? I don't know yet. Get remote -v is going to list all of my remotes. I only have two right now, one called origin and another one called origin. So the difference between these is one is where I'm going to get code from, and the other one is where I'm going to push code to. They just happen to be the same thing, right? So get remote -v shows me all of my remotes, and now this is the big one. This is a get push. This is uploading all of your commits to your remote. So if you just write get push, the first time it'll scream at you, right? It'll get mad. What you're going to want to do instead is write something that looks more like get push origin master, right? And what this is saying is I'm pushing to the origin remote, right? I'm pushing to GitHub in this case, and the branch that I'm pushing is called master. At the moment, you only have a master branch, and I want to delay the conversation about branches for a couple days, honestly, right? So right now you're just going to be going git push origin master, and when you press enter, I used HTTPS, right? I didn't do the SSH thing. So every single time that I try to push, I'm going to get this friendly enter your username, right? And then it's going to ask me for my password, and I'll go, oh my god, like I can't remember my password. I have to go into LastPass and go GitHub and copy my thing. Just so annoying. Just so annoying, right? I pasted my password, I press enter, and then I wait, and then it's up there. You have SSH keys, right? So you just go git push origin master, and the stuff goes up there, and it's perfect, right? And this is successful now. It's telling me I've pushed all the stuff, right? I actually made a new branch up on GitHub to track your master stuff. But the real proof is here when I go back to GitHub and I refresh my page. And now I see all the code that I'd written, right? I see all those files. And I also see a list of all the commits that I'd made. If I was to click on 2 commits, it'll show me, hey, created script.js, add a console log plus new files, right? And if I click on any of these, it'll show me all of the changes. So created script.js was just creating the script, no actual lines. This one here had a line of code in there. Okay? So you'll be able to track your work this way, right? If I was to go back to my project and make a new change here, so let me go into script.js and add another. Ooh, Git is fun, right? Like, add whatever you want. We'll go into here, git status. It shows me there's changes. Git add, dot, git commit. Added 2 new console log statements. I do not see these changes on GitHub, right? So if I was to go to GitHub and refresh, I don't see that there's 3 commits until I push, right? I have to go git push origin master, and then again, see, it's going to ask me for my password. I, being silly, forgot to actually save my password, so let me go GitHub and copy my password. Right? Now I'm pushing my changes, and if I was to, at the end of this, go back to GitHub and refresh, I would see 3 commits. Whoops. 3 commits instead of 2. Yeah. And 2 more commands I'll show you. Say for some reason you went into GitHub and you made some changes with the GitHub editor, right? Not that you should ever do this. But for some reason, say for some reason your GitHub repo is ahead of your local repo, right? Like maybe you have some friends or some teammates who've made some changes to your repo and your local machine doesn't have those changes. Over on, in your terminal, when you go git status, it might not say anything, but if you go git pull, you will pull all the changes from the remote. Let me just go git pull. You'd have to go git pull origin master for like the name of the thing. You go git pull the name of the remote and then the branch to which you're pulling to get all those changes. So now I also have those changes from the remote. Now, if I want to see a list of all the changes without having to go to GitHub, like a list of every single one of my commits, I can go git log and it will print out all of the commits. And you can move up and down with the arrow keys and then escape. But, oh, cute. Right. So, that's Git. That's it. Again, as I said at the beginning, I don't expect you to be an expert at Git right now after a lecture, right? If anything, it's just like as you're going through the readings and the assignments, you'll be like, oh, right, Nemo was talking about that. Now, that's it. I actually ended right on time. I know I said I was going to try to 4:15, but the time that I had budgeted for this was an hour and a half. So an hour 31, not that bad. I will send out notes very soon. I'm just going to format them so they're pretty. I want to take this opportunity to say, if you don't like a particular lecture or you just want to see like a different point of view, right? You can go through Compass and take a look at some other lecture notes and some other clips of other people's lectures, right? To just get like a 3-dimensional kind of experience, right? Of like what is this topic from different people's points of views, right? So again, like you can go into Compass at any time and say we want to check out like other Life as a Dev breakouts. When you scroll down to the bottom, here's one by David Mills. Here's one by Don. And here's me again, right? So there you go. That to say, like, if a lecturer does not send out notes as soon as you would like, or if a lecture just doesn't get recorded for some reason, right? You have the ability of like going off of stuff that had been done before, a month ago. Cool. Are there any questions? Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So for Calgary, the question was about the naming of the remote, so like origin, and the branch called master, whether those are like standard names. And the answer is yeah. GitHub has just decided in their documentation to always call themselves origin, but you can name, when I was, where'd you go? When I was adding, I could have renamed this instead of origin to be potato, right? Like I could do that. It's just from now on, anytime I go git push, I'd have to git push potato master, right? I might actually start doing that. So, so here's git push potato. The other part of the question was about the branch called master, right? By default, it's just standard to have what we call a master branch, which is like the most stable version of your product, right, or production. In my personal projects or like at some places I've worked at, the convention that we go for is to have 3 main branches, one called production, one called staging, and one called development. But it's really up to you. Anytime you create a project on GitHub, though, or anytime you get in it, it will make a branch called master by default. Any other questions? Cool. I hope you're as hyped about this stuff as I am. If not, I hope our hypedness rubs off on you really soon. But you all look really excited. Calgary as well. Please message me if you do have any questions. And yeah, notes are gonna be out in a minute. Cool. Oh, you're welcome. Thanks. Oh, Taylor's typing a question. What about folders? Is the branch a similar term? No, so a Git repo is going to track many files and folders within one folder. So over here in Git good, if instead of making a file, I made a new folder, let me just call it astast, and inside of this one I'm going to make a file called test2.js and just write a bunch of stuff here. When I git status, I'm going to see that the astast folder has been made, and then I git add dot and git status. It'll show me that inside of the astast folder, test2 is being tracked. I go git commit -m, add new folder with test2, git push origin master, and in a second, what I'm going to see is up on GitHub the entire thing. So over on Git good, I now also have a folder called astast with a test2, right? So you'll have one root folder, but you can track many files and many folders within those. Cool. All right. Feezy, I hope that answered your question. Cool. If you have any else, just message me.